American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. So before I'm joined by today's guest, former Washington Redskin running back / returner / possible hopeful future Hall of Famer, Brian Mitchell, just want to go over a couple little planning purposes for you guys. So starting every week now during the season, I'll be doing the live streams every Tuesday night, and I did one this past Tuesday. I'm going to do another one again this Tuesday, leading into the season opener against Tampa Bay. I'll be joined by the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein, for those. Almost, if not every week, it'll be almost every week. So it's either going to be in that 7 or 8 o'clock hour, depending on when we think is best. So just stay tuned for that. And then I'll be doing about probably 4 to 5 podcasts every week throughout the season. So, be talking to reporters who cover the other teams. I'll be doing, game wrap-ups. You'll be doing one from throughout the week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. And then another one for Friday, just about like things that you learn throughout the week that I think you will be interested in, mixed in with a little bit of a preview and prediction, but that's not going to be the heavy emphasis. So anyways, there you go. So stay tuned for all that. Looking forward to a fun season. Always appreciate you listening. So with B. Mitch, we talked a lot about leadership. We talked a lot about what did he see from this organization this summer that maybe he hasn't been seeing for the previous several years. Also, a lot on Jaden Daniels and leadership, and a guy that he absolutely loves in terms of, especially for leadership, what he saw from Mike Samerstill in terms of leadership that really, I think, is encouraging to him. So anyways, there you go. That's enough for me. Here's my conversation with former Washington Redskin running back / returner, Brian Mitchell. For the entire month of August, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is offering multiple ways to save on climbing and zip lining and 50% off axe throwing. There are only a few Sundays left without football, so it's time to get that last summer adventure on the schedule. There's no better place to spend the last few days and nights of the summer with friends and family. Don't just take our word for it. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring was named the #1 aerial adventure park in North America by USA Today. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. So there you have it, folks. For the rest of the summer, you can get the best climbing, zip lining, and axe throwing in the country, up to 50% off right here in the DMV. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/Keim. All right, B. Mitch. So always enjoy talking to you and getting your opinions. You always see a lot and a lot of little things that others do not see. So I am curious, after being around this team spring and summer, what are some of the early takeaways from what you've seen in this new regime? Because you were pretty much on the other one pretty early.
I just feel that the people that they're going to keep on this team are going to be competitive guys. And I expect, listen, I'm not saying that they're going to go out there and win double-digit games, but I expect more competition, not only against each other, but also against the other teams they're going to be facing. There are other teams that have great chemistry. They're well-established. They've been around for a long time. And this team is trying to get to that. But I'm expecting them to go out there and compete, and I think Dan is expecting it. He's going to hold people accountable. And that is something that we didn't have before. Right now, we have that, and I expect it to be that way throughout the year and moving forward.
What were some of the best things maybe that you saw during practice that kind of paints for you maybe a picture of more optimism?
Well, I look at Jaden Daniels is the number one guy.
Yeah.
The way he plays, but you see the energy at practice where the guys seem like they care. And for me in football, it's tough, to constantly go out there every day and put your body through these rigors and things of that nature. So you got to be able to find a way to get the energy out. The little thing that they do at the beginning of practice, I know a lot of people haven't really looked at that and take it. I think that right there gets the jitters out, get the emotions flowing to where guys can at least approach practice in an up-tempo type of way. And then when they get out there, they're competing at a high level. I've watched offensive guys, defensive guys, they take pride in it, where a lot of times you will hear when they would start drawing in, they would kind of stop that. They didn't want them doing it. Hell, it's a part of football. You play with emotions. And if you can't go out there and have your emotions and use them and play with them, then why the hell play it at all?
It's funny because with that little stuff they do right before practice, I wondered, what's it going to be like in late August or mid-August when you've been doing this all the time? Do you still have that enthusiasm? And it still seemed like the energy was there each time. Yeah. I also think if it wasn't, Daryl Tapp would have kicked their butt.
Well, I think he would have, but the thing of it is, when you know that is what your coaches expect, you try to give them what they expect. But if you know that you cannot do something your coach will probably give in and don't let you do it, then you stop doing it. Listen, John, I talk to a lot of people, and I know I talk to a lot of people in the media, I talk to a lot of people outside of the media, but everyone seems to act like I never played football. I played 14 years. You were around when I was playing. And the ultimate thing for me is this. In my 14th year, I was exciting and energetic as I was in my first year.
Yeah.
In my 10th, 12th year, when I approached the game in the same physical, out your mind type mindset. I didn't give a damn who was on the field, how big you were. And I think why today athletes, some of them don't think like that. Some of them feel like they get drafted, they made it. And I've always said it's easy in the world to get drafted, but you got to stay around. And I think I heard somebody make the comment today about, hey, if some guys act like they're just satisfied, but you got to compete. I didn't just compete in year one in 1990. I was competing all the way to 2003. And to me, when I hear coaches come out and they expect that, I think it brings out greatness. Look, when you are a person where you know you got to compete to keep your job, either you're going to be damn good or you're going to just show that you're not good enough. And the coaches are going to keep the person that's damn good. And I think what has happened in football, where a lot of coaches want the younger guys because you know what? I can control them. Well, why not? Why get rid of a guy who's a little older, who's still ultra competitive, but he'll always challenge you as well? And I don't think Dan Quinn gives a damn about being challenged by some of his players. I think coaches prior to him did. They didn't want anybody saying anything because I had told coaches before, this team is my team as much as it's yours. Because let's get it straight. They signed guaranteed contracts. I didn't. So if you try to put me in a position where it's not going to benefit me, or if you don't benefit me, you're not benefiting the team in a sense. So the whole thing about if you're not going to let me play my absolute best, then I'm going to question you about it. And I think a lot of coaches wanted players that wouldn't do that. Dan doesn't seem to care about that. He wants that. He wants the players' input, which I like.
And to that point, I got two things. One, I can attest your mindset because you're, like you said, I was there the whole time, almost the whole time. But also, I remember having a conversation with you one time about that. You said a lot of times people get drafted, they think they made it. And I remember you telling me this years ago. My attitude was, it's just now starting, basically. So that was the mindset throughout. I mean, I do remember that conversation.
Well, I get to Washington in 1990. You got Darryl Green and Art Monk and Ernest Biner, and I'm watching Donnie Warren and Bostic. These guys are doing stuff after practice. They're putting in work as if they're rookies. You know what I mean? So what should I do? I'm not going to go into the room with the rookies that just came here with me. They don't know what the hell's going on. So I would go to the other field and just imitate what they were doing until they finally invited me, like Coach Gibbs told me they would. And that stuff stuck with me. But like today, the young guy is the leader. If you look at some situations, Robert came here as a rookie and they instantly thrust him up on being a leader. Hell, he didn't know the NFL. How he's going to lead anybody? But I think people, and they seem to have an attitude with a guy who came before them telling them, you got to put more into this thing. You know what I mean? Because that little saying, if you're not putting enough in it, you can't expect a lot out of it. My whole thing, if you want something, you got to do something you never did before. If you got to give something you never had, point blank.
Well, and to that point, there's two things with it, because I want to ask you how much there are a lot of ex-players on that coaching staff. Yeah. How much does that help with that mindset? I'm going to get to Jade and leadership in a minute, but how much does that help, do you think, with that whole mindset?
Well, I think for players, it helps a lot, because the first thing, when a player is challenged, he always want to ask the coach, when did you have to go through this? Well, you can't say that to to well over half of that team.
Right.
These guys have been through it. So it's coming from a point of experience and a point of me doing it. So when I tell you to do something, you should just follow suit. And then when you start seeing all of those former players respecting your coach and the coaches that hadn't played like that, then who are you gonna question? I think a lot of times a lot of players have I had like with Bobby Jackson, he was my running back coach. Me and Bobby had we had to go at it each other all the time because Bobby would tell me stuff that I know wasn't working and wasn't going to work. And I would say, so I'm like, Bobby, why would I do that? And there was a play I scored a touchdown, and he was arguing with me about I didn't do what he told me to do. I scored a touchdown. I did what you told me to do. I would never score a touchdown. So, but if he had been a player who had a coach who had played, I probably would have instantly gave him that total respect. But you don't have to play to get respect, but you got to show me why I need to believe in you. And if I question you, you can't get mad just because I question you. Because my whole thing was, I want to know. I did this when I was an elementary student. I would always ask the teacher, "Are you sure that's right?" Because I really want to know. And I had teachers who got mad, but I had teachers also who went back and checked it, and some admitted that they were wrong. Okay, so if a coach couldn't do it, that's his problem. Because I was raised to give respect to those who give it to me. If you don't respect me, why the hell am I respect you?
So to that point, first of all, Bobby Jackson, remember about him, he drove a red Ford Taurus. It's kind of a beat up old car. That's back in the day when assistant coaches were not getting the money they are now. That's one of the things I remember.
Oh, yeah.
He was kind of a tough guy. But again, to that point, first of all, Sean McVay did not play in the NFL, but I felt like he had a really good understanding of listening, the importance of listening to your players. And then I go to like Sam Mills, and Daryl Tapp with this D line. So Sam Mills's thing was, and the whole defensive group was, this is the technique we want you to play. You have to play it. My understanding with Daryl Tapp, it's more like this is one way to play it.
Yeah.
Your job is to get from point A to point B. Try this. If it doesn't work, do your thing to get from point A to point B. That seems to be a big difference.
Well, I think the people that played, they know how to teach the concept, but they also know the concept doesn't work exactly for everybody. I'm a golfer, so the golf swing. The golf swing is not the same for everybody. If you give me a 6'2" guy that weighs about 160, he can do things that I can't do, at 5'10" and a half and 220 something pounds. You know what I mean? So I have to figure out, as long as I get to the ball in my hands in the right position, that's all that matters. If you're on a football field and you go out there to do something, and maybe you just didn't line up in the exact spot that the coach told you, but that gives you a better jump position and you get to that guy before he can get to you, you win. I don't think many coaches will complain about the fact that you win consistently, but there are those coaches who will say, well, I need you to do it how I told you to do it. That's the coach that I'm going to say, okay, and I'm going to ignore the hell out of him because I know what works because I'm on the field all the time. He's not.
And that was what was going on with Mills. They bucked it the whole time.
Yeah.
And it never worked. And I think it impacts the chemistry and all that. And I think it's just in a much better spot right now. But going back to Jayden Daniels, talk about the leadership and watching guys. Now you have Bobby Wagner, you have Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler. All those guys typically do things after practice, right? Or during practice. And so it's, you talked about Robert, but this seems to limit the burden on Daniels to come in and be anything other than a guy who has to do his job at this position. How much is that?
Well, it helps because Jayden Daniels, if you look at him and you watch him, and also I say Mikey Sainristil, both of those guys are natural born leaders. Okay. It's not they're going out their way to be who they are, but I think they all understand that I have to respect the guys that have come before me, like the Bobby Wagners and Austin Eckler. They respect those guys. But I think the coaches having those guys on the team was great for Jayden and Mikey, because I've talked to veteran players who say Mikey basically is acting like a veteran already. Yeah. He's the guy setting up meals and stuff for the guys and ordering them all kind of shakes and doing all these things for them, because that kid understands that he is good at his job. He got his job under control. Now he knows how to go out and start helping out, making everybody else comfortable. Jayden Daniels comes in, and we all complain about who they're going to make the starting quarterback. And this dude, like, I don't care if I'm the starter or not. I'm going to still work the same. I'm going to go out there and make sure that my teammates are going to believe in me and trust in me. So he's a natural leader. Hell, I got here in Washington in 1990. You know, all the leaders were on this football team, but after a year, people were asking me questions. Some of the older vets, why? Because they saw that's who I was. You know, it's kind of hard to go from being a quarterback who used to know everything and try to lead everybody to becoming something that you're not going to still be that person. If it's you, it's you. And I think Jaden and Mikey, they do that, but they do it with respect. They don't come in saying, you got to listen to me, or the owner or the coach will say, well, he's the leader. No, they're just being themselves, and people are naturally gravitating towards them. That says a lot right there. And I think, it's not forcing it for him to have to get up and run the team, because you got veteran guys who will do that. But when it's his time, I think he's going to be totally ready for it.
I do too. And I think that's where it goes back to, again, I'm with you, like the starting and no starting, we knew where it was headed. But I actually, because they were giving him a lot of first team reps early. We knew, they were giving him reps with these guys, but they wanted to let it happen organically and naturally. And I think the leadership thing is the same way. And I think if you're a veteran, I would imagine that's what you want to see.
Totally. And I think when you see him, he seemed like he understood what he was doing. He knew the concepts. He knew what they were expecting. And he had done all his research, and he was making plays and correcting people. Yeah. So when veteran players see that in a young guy, they immediately go, okay, that kid gets it. And the more you do that, now they start to believe in you. And like, I remember when Coach Gibbs told me when I was on the other field, he said, one day they're going to invite you over. And I started getting invited over to the field with Darryl and Ernest them. And then when guys would go out, Raven Caldwell them started inviting me out. They wouldn't invite no of the other rookies. So at that point, like I have older brothers and sisters, so I know when a young guy is starting to be invited with the older guys, they have some respect. They have respect for you because of what you've done and how you're doing it. And that's the same way with Jaden. That kid came in here prepared, and he still beats all of them there, and he's there after they leave. So he is doing everything he needs to do. But the thing about what I love about it, he's not doing it just to be trying to get their fate. He's doing it because that's who he is. He is that guy.
And I was just going to say, it's natural for him. Like he's not posting things on Instagram about him running sprints or anything like that. He's just in there doing his work. And I think like, you're right. Like, and I mean, people like, I would imagine players, teammates pay attention for a quarterback, pay attention to all of that stuff, right?
Yeah. Everyone looks at the quarterback with in a different light, because the quarterback is very much an extension of the ownership and the coaching. And if that quarterback is a person who dummies himself down to show you I'm one of you and respects you, you know that he's gonna always have your back, and he's for the team, he's not for himself. And I keep mentioning Mikey Sanders still, because John, we did the thing over, we did this garden rebuild. And for me, whenever I see a bunch of like little, high profile testosterone driven young men, I just sit back to see who everyone gravitates to. And it was Jaden, but even Jaden was gravitating towards Mikey. So I started saying, who is this little dude right here? This is my first time ever seeing him. And they say, oh, that's Mikey. I'm like, oh, okay. Then I understood why Nick Saban said what he said. Because that little dude, probably the smallest guy in there, everybody's going to him. Then when I watched him, as practice goes on, he's correcting people. He's doing stuff on the sideline. Then I go to the game in Miami. I'm watching him in the hotel. It's not just rookies going to talk to him. It's veterans going to talk to him. And then when you look, and Jaden is a little bit less outgoing than Mikey is, but you find that happens with Jaden also. But Mikey, if you hear people talking, Mikey's probably one leading the conversation. But I love it because, they are who they are, but they getting all their love and respect because of what they do and how they do it, not because someone tells them that they have to look up to them.
Right. No, and I think I'm glad you keep mentioning Sanders still, because that was a big reason why they drafted him. He's a good player, but you have all those other aspects in addition to being a good player, and you could have conceivably you have your offensive and defensive leaders for the next however many years if it works. And that's, and it's hard to find those guys.
Yeah.
It can be really hard.
It is. But see, I have to give the credit to Dan Quinn also, because a lot of coaches, and I'm sure you've seen this in your time, a lot of coaches don't allow leaders to be leaders because they're concerned about them overstepping their bounds and their strength. Instead of being like a Coach Gibbs or Andy Reid, where they allow the veterans on the team or the leaders on the team to help them run their football team. You know, when a coach says something, players listen, but they, like you're against us anyway. When a player comes to you and said, you take heed more because you know that person is going through the same things with you. And Dan Quinn allows those guys to be who they are. I'm not talking about the young guy, but the leaders on his team, the veteran guys, run this football team with me. And he already talked about it. Once they get down to their 53, then they'll pick those guys or see that. But they're not going to go pick who it is without knowing that guy's a leader already.
Right.
They know who the guys are they probably already want. And I'm sure they're going to have some veteran guys. And if Mikey and Jaden ends up on that, I don't think anybody will be upset because these guys have already shown that they're deserving of it.
Absolutely. So let's look on the field a little bit more with what are some things that maybe other aspects of what you've seen that say this can be good, and then other areas that you say still concerned over here?
Well, I mean, I look at some of the interior of the offensive line. I'm happy with that. I think on the right side, Wally played much better last year once things settled down. But the left side, Lucas has been around long enough. And then when I watched the running backs during preseason, and they were chipping and they were stepping up, hitting linebackers in the face. So I asked a question when it was Eric was here, and also when Scott was here. Why don't they help the tackles? You know what I mean? It's like the tackle was always one-on-one. If I'm a running back and I got to check out, or even if I got a free release, I'm gonna go close enough to the tackle to slow him up, so my guy can slow up the pass rusher, so he can slow up, and my tackle can get in a better position to block him. And I think they can help out those guys until, if Coleman is the guy they want, until he can prove it, or Lucas, either one of them, help him out a little bit. It's not gonna kill anything. And then guess what happens on top of that when I slow down the chipping? The linebacker keeps dropping. I got a complete leak out. I can get a 5-yard route and end up going 10, 15. That can help. I'm looking at the secondary now. I mean, looking at the defensive side where the linebacking is going to be a little bit more solidified and a little bit better, which now doesn't make everybody else have to play out of position and things like that. The pass rush, which I'm hoping, the way that Joe Witt and his guys use their defense, the pass rush up the middle. We always cared about what Montez and what Chase was going to do. John and Deron could be vital in getting pass rush because all quarterbacks can step up in the pocket, but if you got that pressure coming in their face, they can't step up. So now they hold the ball a little longer. They have to throw it too soon, and that helps your secondary out. Because right now, I know the secondary hadn't looked good, and we talk about the secondary a lot, but a lot of secondary's problem is that we don't get pressure on the quarterback. Right. And I think that'll change a little bit this year.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because a lot of people are fixated on the ends and how will the ends do, but the tackles are where they know, like they knew when they made their trade from Montez last year, what I was told right away is the plan is to build up the middle, regardless of who's here. Build up the middle on defense because you've already got the tackles. And so like those two guys can benefit from the way Quinn wants to scheme, and Witt, I should say, scheme up that front and the blitzes and all that.
And I think having better guys behind them stops John and Deron from having to play 80% of the plays. Yeah. I think, that could help because when Aaron Donald, he played inside, didn't he?
Yeah.
He got more pressure on quarterbacks than any pass rusher out there.
Yep.
So if we can get that type of play, I would say we take John's best year and Deron's best year and get that together this year. We're not worrying about a pass rush from the outside because they'll have quarterback holding the ball to where the pass rush is going to get the outside rush will get the sacks then.
Correct. And that certainly I think is the plan. And then it's like, can the corners hold up? And because that to me, the secondary, the only issue is the outside corners. How are they going to hold up? That to me is the big question. And then, do you have, we'll worry about next year at the time, but that's the big question for me is outside.
Yeah, it's a question, but I'll say this. As a former quarterback, if I have 4 or 5 seconds to set in the pocket before I let my ball go, there's not a cornerback in the league that's going to cover that guy that long. Okay? But if I have to make a move within 1.92 seconds, now I'm throwing the ball sooner or later than I'm supposed to, which makes my timing go off. And I think those cornerbacks, And then there was the coverages they had last year. Listen, man, if I'm watching guys in the secondary having conversations when the ball has been snapped, if it's that difficult where the people that's doing it can't understand it, then it's too damn difficult.
Right.
You gotta dummy that down so these guys can have communication and go. And what Dan talks about, I want to hear them before I see them. And those guys, you hear them out there on the field, they're communicating, but when the ball is snapped, they're running to spots. They're not still communicating, which means the communication and the understanding of the defense, that automatically will make them better.
1,000%. And I think that's what I like. My big thing is there are a lot of things we still don't know, like the impact of. To me, that's one of the big impacts, like the understanding of the defense. And St. Juice has talked about this too, and just how they've simplified. They don't simplify the defense per se, but they've made the rules less complex. I'll say that. And so,
and that's the thing,
more clear, more focused.
See, the thing of it is this: we've heard coaches talk about how complicated their offense or their defense is. Listen, man, football is simple. You got 0 holes, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8. And on this side, you got 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay? Nothing changes. All the pass routes in whatever offense you have is on the same route tree. But in one, like with Joe Gibbs and Norv Turner, the longest play might be 8 words. In Scott Sean McVay and Shanahan and like Andy Reid, the longest play might be 22 words. Okay? Is it that you don't understand the offense, or it's too many damn words to spit out in a certain period of time? Or like in the West Coast, what Andy would do, the quarterback has to tell everybody what to do. So if I go through a play and I'll be like X, this, Y, this, I'm telling everybody what to do. In Joe's and Joe's offense and also in Norv's offense, 478. The XYZ knows X runs the 4, Y runs the 7, and which going to run the 8. And the running back knows X like a hook off of it. So you get to learn plays quickly. Okay. But in the other stuff, and now you got to have the quarterback spit it out. So that's why some quarterbacks, you watch them, the younger quarterbacks in the West Coast, they're coming out the huddle so damn late. But the coaches can simplify that a little bit for them. Instead, like that's why when quarterbacks get the wristband and they just go with play one, they can just see one, they give them a one, they read it off real quick, they go. But to think everybody has to understand that immediately, it's stupid to me. It's asinine.
It's hard, and I do think like
over time you'll learn it. Just like when you're studying for a play or something, when you first get it, you got it, but you miss a word and it throws you off. But in about 3 months, you're going through it, miss a play, you can still go with it. It doesn't make a difference. So they have to give people time to learn it. But some coaches are so like, I know John Gruden used to read his stuff a lot. You're reading off a script, dude, and then you tell them to regurgitate it. Yeah, but if they can read off the script, they'll never mess it up neither.
That's a good point. But I do think that's an underrated aspect of all these changes. But the communication on defense has been dramatically better. They're going to mess up because it's still new. But you also, like when we've seen them get beat, it's usually more of a one-on-one thing more than a communication breakdown, or got 5 guys doing this and 1 guy doing that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's a big thing. Just one last thing, Brian Robinson. Yeah. What did you think? What are your expectations for him this year?
I'm expecting him to have a big year. I've talked to him a couple of times this year, and Brian he's ready. You look at him coming his first year and boom, bad circumstance, but he came back and he was going for it. Then last year, I think it was a little more than he expected. It's a long season. And then all of a sudden now, this is the time where those players now they begin to get it. They know what's expected of them. They know what they have to do, and they can relax and just live life. Because what happens is a lot of times you're not only trying to learn what you got to do in football, you're trying to learn your life off the field to what's best for you. How you gonna get this thing so you can give your optimal performance when it comes down to it. And I think he's ready to go. And I think what he's also by being with Austin, he's learned the pass routes and the field catching the ball better out the backfield. That's going to help him tremendously. I remember in the first game against the Jets where they kept putting Brian in the game and then they'll run a pass route. Then they put Austin in and they were running start him up at the left T position, move him over to the right, and then he'll come back to the left with a running play. Then they put him. Austin was in the backfield when they faked it and Jaden run in. If you could have both of those guys being able to run and pass, that opens up your offense for you because teams now can't get a key on what you're trying to do.
There you go. So I'm thinking a big year for him too. And I also think the impact of Jaden Daniels on the run game and maybe just freezing a backside. The linebackers now it's an arm tackle versus in the hole. Huge difference. And I think his vision was pretty good this summer too. So all that together is going to work. And B. Mitch, I did not bring up the Hall of Fame because the last time I talked to you, we brought it up, but I thought it was cool. You got a shout out. And eventually you're going to get in there. And so, but I thought it was cool that you got a shout out during the ceremony. And
so that was fun. That was cool. That's cool. And hopefully the people that have those decisions were listening and they will probably finally come out and give a little bit more respect to special teams.
It's a lot of numbers you put up, dude. So, all right, man. Appreciate it, B. Mitch.
All right, John, anytime, brother. Take care.
Hey, it's Bram Weinstein here, voice of the Commanders, and of course, frequent guest of this podcast, The John Keim Report. I wanted to let you all know that my show, which airs at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on ESPN 630, is now exclusively produced by Empire Media, my company, and is going to be distributed through our network. So I'm asking you, please, if you subscribe to this show and love this show, give mine a try as well. Subscribe to the Bram Weinstein Show wherever you get your podcasts. And many of the shows and many of the elements that are in the show will be available on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk a ton of Commanders and other DC sports. Check it out.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to B. Mitch for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Monday with another episode, so talk to you next time.
These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.